Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year. Hello, hello. Is this thing on? Can somebody put in the chat if you can hear my mic and see me okay? All right, cool. So, lots of fun things to do today. Every year I tell myself, I'm going to go live so much more this year. And every year I go live like once or twice or like maybe three. Actually, no, last year I think I only went live like once. But it's always so fun. So what we're going to do today, and this is usually what I've done in the past, we're going to warm up with some readings because it's a good time for that. It's a new year. And then I'm going to give a mini lecture, mini rant with multiple side quests on the numerology of the new year, its connection with tarot, and how we can best incorporate that to create more fun and freedom in our lives. So yeah, and then at the end, I'll probably do readings again. And every time I do this, I plan to like be live for like an hour and a half or like an hour, and then I'm live for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because I just have a lot of fun. So I'm going to try to keep it to 2 hours though. Sounds good? All right. So lots of fun stuff to talk about this year. We're going to do some readings, and then we're going into numerology. We're going to talk about the macrocosmic manifestation through symbolism and through some fun esoterica and the tarot. We're going to talk about the Wheel of Fortune. And then we're going to talk about how to take all that fancy symbolism and meaning and incorporate it into your personal sphere. So very hermetic, very as above, so below. We're going to take these giant overarching themes and see how we ourselves are manifesting those or not manifesting them. And we're going to explore how we can further optimize creating the world and life that we want, especially in times that are, very uncertain for a lot of people in different ways. In such rich complexity and uncertainty, it's a great time for manifestation. One of the things I learned relatively early on in my growth was that manifesting out of chaos is almost sometimes more powerful and more effective than manifesting out of order, because manifesting out of chaos, there's more fun stuff to play with. There's more of a dance going on. Maybe not an orchestrated dance, but there's more stuff that you can play with and use. So we're going to play with it. Cool. So let's jump in. Thank you guys for being here. I'm so excited to hang with you guys. Let's charge up our deck and then jump in. And then I'll do some readings now, and then I'll do some readings at the end. But I think, honestly, the best thing about today is going to be the mini lecture I have prepared, because we're going to be talking about the Wheel of Fortune, which this is one of those cards where if you really understand it, you kind of understand everything, because it's everything. I mean, every tarot card points to everything in its own way, but certain cards point to everything in a more palpable way, and in a more it just covers more bases in terms of the scale of meaning it has, both for your personal life, for the collective. So this is one of those cards where if you really dig into it, like really look into all the different symbols and what they're pointing to and its numerological connections, then you're kind of looking at everything. And it's one of the cards it's easier to get to that point of, oh wow, this is everything, than some of the other cards, which is a fun place to be in tarot, and especially in the deeper spiritual work of tarot. Okay, so I definitely recommend staying for that. It's going to be so fun. Let's warm up with some readings, yeah? I'm going to be using this deck by Daniel Martin Diaz, by the way, who's one of my new favorite tarot deck creators, who actually did the cover of my book, which is a totally different story. But I'll talk about that another time. But he did the cover of my book, and it was really cool how it ended up happening, because I was a fan of his before that, but I didn't know that he was the creator of these decks that I liked. And he just created this Rider-Waite-Smith, which is beautiful. It's like one of the highest quality Rider-Waite-Smith decks ever. So plug to Daniel Martin Diaz. And he also created the Earth Magic Tarot, and he created some other things as well. He's a brilliant artist. All right, so let's warm up and then get reading. Oh boy, here we are, 2026. I invoke thee, Iaho, that thou send Heru, the great angel, set upon the operations of the secret wisdom, to lay his hands invisibly upon these consecrated cards of art, that thereby we may obtain knowledge of hidden things in your ineffable name. Amen. Here we are. It's Capricorn season. Yep. Oop, it's backwards. Here we go. My partner got me this. It's Capricorn. All right. Fun fact about Capricorn. I had some people comment lately, or sometimes I'll see people comment saying like, Joe, you're the GOAT. And I always thought it was like, oh, because I'm a Capricorn. That makes sense. And then I realized later that means greatest of all time, which is even better. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So I don't know. Maybe it's the Gen Z slang, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, or maybe that's an old term. I don't know. I didn't know what it meant until recently. I was like, oh, that's cool. All right. So how do we want to do this? Let's just jump in. Whoever has a burning question for the new year, put it in the chat. I'll get to as many as I can in the beginning. We'll go into a lecture and then we'll do some more readings. Yeah, let's start with Chelsea Dale. Chelsea Drysdale, sorry. Okay, I set an intention to live more slowly this year. Any advice on how I can do this? I'm gonna pull this card, but before this card, I'm gonna tell you what's coming to me already. So here's the problem with moving slowly. I know everyone's like, take your time, move slowly, don't rush, don't like, it's important to take a moment. I agree with that, but the problem is when you move too slowly, the momentum can be less stable. So when you're on a bike, right, the slower you move, the harder it is to balance. So in moving more slowly, you want to find a speed that is stable enough for you to keep moving, but without going, but enough where you're balanced, but slow enough for your intention, right? So we can never stop moving. So it's about what is the type of movement that's going to support the rhythm that I want in my life. So it's just changing one rhythm for another, right? Your blood's going to keep moving. You're going to keep breathing, until you're a cadaver, and then it won't matter at that point. But before then, you want to kind of look at all the rhythms of your life, like the sun coming up and down, your breathing, your blood flow, everything is happening. Your moods, there's movement. So it's about setting the rhythm of what you want to create. So the card for you is the World, which is pretty appropriate for that. The World she's the Shekinah. She is the divine feminine. She is manifestation, the glory of spirit manifested fully. And so what does that mean is, okay, we're already going into the deep stuff. That's fine. The World card represents the movement and the feminine, which is the manifestation of the stillness and the masculine. The contradiction here, the mystical contradiction, is that she's literally dancing, right? She's spinning these two like scepters and she's dancing in this wreath. She is the rhythm of manifestation, which is so mysterious because even though everything's moving, that which is ultimately true is infinitely still, which is consciousness, awareness, truth, right? So in order, if you want to find more stillness, if you want to move more slowly, you have to surrender to the movement that's happening and be with that, and not try to mess with it. And not trying to mess with it, surrendering to it, it'll feel still while you're still moving. So what's a good example of this? People that are really, a great example, people that are really good at things are unconsciously competent. They're so good at something that it just happens like that, and they don't think about it. So for them, they're not moving fast. It's just they're kind of still, and their body and mind are reacting automatically. So, and that makes sense because this card also, if for all my Kabbalistic friends out there, this card goes up into Yesod, which is the subconscious. So this card connects the body to the subconscious. It's the 30-second path on the Tree of Life. Cool. This is the kind of thing that I'm starting to do more readings where I'm like, okay, here's the divination, but here's the fun stuff, and here's some of the macrocosmic patterns to incorporate. And it's really fun to see kind of people take that and apply it and see where they go. Okay. Stella Blue, I would love a career job reading. Can I have the toxicity? Can I leave the toxicity behind? Okay, Stella Blue, great question. I'm going to give you another question for that. The question for you is, what's the purpose of the toxicity and how does it serve you? When you can surrender and admit to the benefit of the toxicity, it'll be so much easier to leave it behind. So for New Year's, a lot of people will say, okay, leave behind what doesn't serve you. Let's write it down on the paper. Let's burn it. Let's do all this transformation. And I love that, do all that work. But before you do that, we have to kind of play a little devil's advocate here and say, okay, well, what was that serving me? Like what did it serve me when I had it? And is it still giving me that? Because if we can't admit that there's a benefit to the thing that we claim we don't want in our life anymore, then we haven't owned up to the fact that we created it, and thus we can't uncreate it. So Stella, your card is the Magician, which is the ultimate manifestation card. So I'm going to give you a divination, and then we'll go a little deeper. So Magician is telling you a couple things. First of all, in terms of work and career, I'm looking at communication, I'm looking at media, I'm looking at technology. Now, if you're not in this field, then it's about applying those things to whatever field you're in. Magician is big with marketing, big with advertising. He's Hermes, he's communication, right? So if it's not that you're in marketing, advertising, communication, writing, any kind of connecting people, then it's about, okay, you need to get your resume up to date. You have to get your email game on, maybe get your AI game on. Like you have to really get those skills together to best support the thing that you want to do. Communication is key. Now, going a little bit deeper, we know that the Magician is our big manifestation card. This is our card of as above, so below. This is our card of creation. This is the logos. This is the word. And the word was with bird, bird, bird. But bird is the word, right? That's the Magician. Okay. So ceremony as well is important to you. He is a ceremonial magician. So any kind of work with ritual, ceremony, tradition, creating an experience for somebody, supporting somebody else in manifesting something. This is also a card of creativity, so artistry, but I get a lot of quick writing, and communication is going to be super important for you. All right. Ithaca Soap, your question is, I feel like there's a timeline split. What will that look like for the collective? This is a really fun question. Okay. So I have a card here, but I want to answer it before I even pull the card. So the truth about anytime you hear something about a timeline split, the real truth is that how many people are there on the 8 billion now? There's 8 billion timeline splits. Not because time is subjective, but literally because of relativity, everyone is on ever so slightly an infinitesimally small difference in time, just because we have slightly different, ever so slightly difference. Our brain has the slightest most difference in distance from the Earth and gravity. So there's 8 billion timeline splits, to be very accurate. But in terms of what you're talking about, like a collective timeline split, I would look at it more in terms of egregores, which are just collections of patterns of thought or energy, however you want to look at it, that influence large numbers of people. So different egregores, people look at them as spirits, people look at them as movements, just packets of collected thoughts, ideas, thought, like many thought forms coming together into like one giant thought form for some sort of connected group of people or movement. And there will always be egregores, most likely, until maybe if we're all enlightened, maybe there will just be one egregore and it will be God or truth. But until then, there's going to be multiple egregores, and that's what makes all this fun and horrible and scary. And that's where all the suffering is, but that's also where all the joy is and all the art and all the lovemaking and all the fun. So there's always going to be egregores. But the card that you got is the Six of Pentacles. So it's going to be a time of giving back. It's going to be a time of generosity. People are going to find new ways to give and contribute. Even in the most uncertain times, even in dark times, even in even in like periods of deep instability collectively or psychologically, people are going to find new ways to contribute to each other, which is really cool. And I didn't expect to see this card, to be honest, but this is really nice. So it's about contributing. And here's this, this is something that I believe in. My partner just told me this yesterday. We were having a deep talk, and he was saying, I just think everyone's doing the best they can. And it's such a relief to know that, right? Everyone's doing the best they can. That's not to say they're doing all good all the time, but I do believe that everyone is doing the best they can with what they believe to be true. That's my only asterisk to that. Everyone's doing the best they can with what they believe to be true. And that's all we can do, right? That's our karma. That's our will to life, our will to power, our will to death, whatever the philosophers talk about, the true will, Crowley's true will. We're all doing the best we can. Yeah. All right, Victoria, are you able to sense of when I will be able to find my dream home? I've been looking to move. All right. All right, King of Pentacles is saying, give it a year. I hate to say that. Give it a year. So with time questions, things can always change. And I never want you to marry a divination I give with time. The cards right now are saying about a year. But again, if you change your energy, if you change what you're looking for, if you you can change that. You can bring it faster. You can push it away, right? But right now, as things are set right now, it's looking at about a year or so. Queen of Cups is saying within a month or so, we're looking at a new emotional piece to your new home that you might kind of know already. Like, that it's something you want, but I don't think you've allowed yourself to fully want it. You haven't given yourself the permission to say, oh, this is actually what I want. It's kind of there. It's there but it's not fully realized. So in a month or so, I could see you either seeing a neighborhood or seeing a city or seeing something and be like, oh yeah, this is actually something I want, and I can finally allow myself to want it. And then I see a process of 11 months or so in actually finding the specific place. G-77, what blessings come through divine? The present moment, right now. It's infinite. It's all blessings. But I'm gonna give you a card. Ooh, this one really wanted to come out. Emperor. G-77. Now's the time for more confidence and for setting boundaries and for you to. I'm seeing you come into some authority in some way, and you've dealt with authority in the past, but it's time for you to take on a role of authority and do it differently than whatever authority was before you. To do it in whatever way you can see as more of a contribution to you in the world. I am what I am. Is 26 going to be a smoother and more promising year? Goal achieving and abundant. 2025 and past years had so many turmoils and setbacks. Okay. We're going to talk about that today a lot. So I would definitely stay for when I get into the lecture on the Wheel of Fortune, because we're going to talk about manifestation. We're going to talk about what thwarts manifestation. We'll talk about turmoil. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. But the card that's coming up for you is the Ace of Cups. So that's a big yes. That's a big yes. You just have to be able to receive it. That's a big thing. You have to be able to receive it. Oh my God, this is a big one. You have to be willing to receive. And that can also be gaslighting when I say that. And I don't want it to be gaslighting. I don't want people to think like, oh, I'm not, like Joe says, to be willing to receive. Why am I not willing to? It can lead into a dark place. Being willing to receive is, it's really it's mostly the subconscious mind and the way that you view yourself and the way that you view. It's how you allow your self-image to relate with what's around you, or how you don't allow it to relate. And the truth is, we relate to everything we experience by virtue of experiencing it. So the Ace of Cups, for example, the suit of water is all about receiving. It's the sacred feminine. It's the secret of all form. It's Shakti. It's Kali. It's all the feminine deities which represent form and experience. Okay, which eventually manifest into the world that we know. The biggest lie that we tell ourselves that stops us from receiving is that in some way we are like divided from what we experience. Ace of Cups is recognizing that you have infinite responsibility to all the things you experience, your emotions, your feelings, your sensations, your thoughts, the people, places, and things. Not that you owe all these things anything, but you're in contact with them. So it's not about right and wrong, good and bad. Most people look at the world as what's right, what's wrong, what's good and bad, what's for me, what's not for me. That's useful, but you kind of want to be able to first receive everything and then feel the energy of it and then be like, okay, here's the energy of this moment, this place, this time. I can feel it all, I can see it all, I can see the people around me, I know what's going on without judgment. And when you don't have judgment of it, then you can start to participate more dynamically in the energies around you. This is a practice. This is like a long, and from somebody who I get very like tunnel vision because I'm ADHD and I hyperfixate, that can be a good thing too. But every now and then I have to really just breathe in all the energies around me to kind of see what's going on so that I can receive what I really want to receive. Because a lot of times what we want is closer than we think, but we are, because of our judgments, we're pushing it away. Not in all cases. Okay. Sharika on YouTube. What do I have to do to be aligned with my path, the great work? What's on my mind is partnership and moving to Florida, Cancer rising. Okay. So what do I have to do to be aligned? Do you want the true answer or the slightly less true answer? I'll give you the slightly less true answer, and then I'm going to give you the true answer. Is that cool? The slightly less true answer is it's time to set your priorities. There's a lot of things you're involved with. And you might be a little bit like me. I don't know. You might be a little ADHD, like you have a lot of interests at once. But it's time to choose at least one or two things to focus on for the year primarily, because those one or two things are going to have like 10 things under them to complete. So to get more aligned, really, it's priorities. You want to get your priorities straight and accept that you can't do everything now. But different aspects of your life can support the priority. So if partnership is important to you, you want to ask, is partnership number one this year, or is the great work number one, or can they be related? They can be related, obviously. It's all, anything with the great work, everything is related to the great work, all your experiences. But yeah, if you're doing partnership, you're connecting with Venus and Netzach and the sevens of the tarot, and there's an energy there that's different from the eights and Mercury and everything else, which is fine. So it's just about priorities. Now the big truth is the big truth is there can't be anything not aligned ever. There can't be anything not aligned. This is a hard one, but sometimes, but every atom, every quark, every force, strong force, weak force, gravity, whatever, all the forces, it's all exactly where it is for this to happen. Nothing's unaligned. Everything is perfectly aligned in accordance with the law of nature, of truth. So you're already aligned. From that perspective, and what I'm talking about here, this is a level 3 thing for people that follow my work. You know, I talk about these 3 levels. From the level 3 perspective, you just sit back and enjoy the show. That's it. You just sit back and enjoy the show. All right. I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to get into the lecture for today. And then we'll do more readings at the end. So Juanita, it's a big jumbled mess in my mind. So scatterbrained, hard to focus. Well, I guess that's not a question. Did you want me to go into that? Okay. How to focus. Great question. I'm gonna speak from my personal experience first, because I have learned over the past 5 years running Tarot Mysticism Academy and working with like hundreds and hundreds of students that a lot of my students are ADHD like me, which is really, I had an intuition of this, but I didn't know how much this was a thing until the past couple of years where I started to really take a closer look and really listen for that. So I'm not saying everybody that all my subscribers are ADHD. I just find a lot of people interested in tarot are, and definitely a lot of people that come into Tarot Mysticism Academy are. And so for a lot of us, it's like when I teach tarot, because I'm ADHD, I teach from a lot of models. I teach from a lot of whys. Like when people start coming through the curriculum, one of the first things I do is I teach them the whole map of the perennial philosophy, right? So I'm looking, so here's the tarot, here's the Kabbalah, here's numerology, here's the astrology, here's the elements, and the whole arch, the whole path roadmap is this. And you'll see this in so many different mystical traditions. So for brains like mine, having that roadmap, having that model makes everything so much easier because things start to make sense logically. There's a visual thing for the mind to kind of grasp onto to play with. And so from that map, then we spend a year building every little piece of that map step by step, but never forgetting the map, right? And that's really helpful. A lot of my students will tell me, like in the first month, they'll say something like, Joe, like, if I had known this years ago, oh my God, tarot would be so much easier, or the symbolism would be so much easier to understand. It's like, it's so deep, but it's so simple now. Like one of the things I'm really good at is helping people understand complex depth, real complex depth in a simple way. And it's really fun to do. So I'm sharing this to you with this because I want you to know sometimes for focus, we need a roadmap. We need a path ahead that excites us, that motivates us, right? So I'll talk about video games real quick. Sorry, side tangent. I love playing video games. And I think my ADHD brain likes video games because it sets out a clear path with dopamine hits along the way as you grow your character, as you develop, as you go, across levels. There's always like I play a lot of RPGs. Right now I'm playing Trails in the Sky for Switch 2, which is so fun. My partner got it for me for Christmas. It's such a fun game. I don't play video games as much as I used to because I don't have time, but I am finally playing a video game. And it's just the joy of constantly growing a character and seeing things grow, increasing their stats, getting better equipment, new abilities. So I'm going to say for focus, and then I'm going to pull your card. For focus, set yourself up for success by engineering some kind of roadmap with quick wins along the process. With Tarot Mysticism Academy, my team helped me out. I just spent like 3 days putting together like the ultimate syllabus that has a checklist of every skill, course, piece of knowledge, experience to look forward to that they can check off one by one. And I'm really proud of it. We literally just released it to the school. I'm really proud of it. So I'm really excited to see what the students have experience with it. But for me, that kind of thing is really exciting because it helps you see like all the things you have to look forward to, and then you feel accomplished. So for lack of focus, now this is not just for people with ADHD. This is for anybody. It's a question of motivation. Now I'm going to give you the hard truth, and then I'm going to pull your card, okay? The hard truth is motivation dictates action. Motivation, you can write this down. Motivation dictates action. Motivation dictates action. I can't say that word, I guess. If you're not taking action in one direction, it just means you don't have enough motivation. And if you don't have enough motivation, it just means you don't want it as much, right? If you want something enough, you will move, right? I mean, if you're starving and you're in the living room, you're going to move into the kitchen to eat something, right? It's just about how much you want something. So, what I recommend for focus is having a deep dive, and this is the big, hard question. Ready? And we're going to talk about this later today too. The big, hard question is sitting down and asking yourself, what do I really want? It's a very, very tough question. And it's something that you constantly update and rewrite throughout your life, because you want something and then you get it and then you want something else. That's just samsara. That's the game. That's what we're in. It's fun. We're having fun. I'm having fun. Are you? Maybe you're not having fun. We're having fun on some level. So you keep rewriting it, but you have to be honest with what you want. And if you're honest with what you want and you don't have shame, guilt, or doubt around it, you'll start moving towards it. It's very simple. In everything I've done a lot of cool stuff in this life, and I've had pretty good success with a few very niche things in this life. But any success I've ever had has been from allowing myself to want something without, at least with minimal guilt, doubt, and whatever. Guilt, doubt, and shame, with minimal of all those three, and then allowing myself to move towards it, and then seeing results. And then the results motivate me more to go even deeper. So your card is Justice. Oh my God, this is what I'm talking about. Justice is all about discipline. Justice is a little bit, it's also about motivation. It's about, justice is that which removes unnecessary stuff. Very simple. It balances you. Justice comes in and says, what's the truth here? Justice is saying, it's the sword of truth that cuts away the BS, the bullshit belief systems, and then says, what is it that you really want? Be true about it. Be honest. It's honesty. And then when you have that, your trajectory changes and justice guides you along the way. That's all justice. Okay. Shall we get into some Wheel of Fortune madness today? And then we'll do some more readings. So for anybody who wants to manifest something big this year, for anyone who wants to make a change, for anyone who wants to achieve something or change their situation or change their circumstances, like really wants it, this is going to be the lecture for you. We are going to be talking about the numerology of the year and how to incorporate that energy to make the biggest differences with the least amount of effort. Yay! So who would like to learn about making the biggest differences with the least amount of effort? Sounds fun? All right. So first things first, we're going to get technical. So my teaching style is I kind of get technical and I go deep, and then I pull back, and then I say, how do we apply this? And then we go deep again. Okay. So we're going to jump in the deep end. We'll swim to the shallow end, and then we'll go back into the deep end. So just put in your questions as we go. If you are a student of mine in Tarot Mysticism Academy, you'll probably know a lot of what I'm going to discuss, but it'll be good training for you because you're going to see how I incorporate all the technicalities of what I've taught you. And there might be some things I haven't taught as well. And if you are new to my stuff or whatever, enjoy the show. Let's take off. Okay, pop quiz. This year is 2026. What is the numerology of the year? Put in the chat, what is the numerology of the year? The number of this year is 10 and 1. Okay, cool. 10 and 1. Okay, cool. 1 and 10. Great. That's where we're going to go. Exactly. Okay, it's a 10 year, which is a 1 year. So we're going to play with 10 and 1. We're going to play with 10 first because 10 is important. And then we're going to play with 1. Okay. So I already showed it to you, but what is the 10th major arcana card in the tarot? What is the 10th major arcana in the tarot? Wheel of Fortune. Exactly. Okay. So 2026 is 2 plus 2 plus 6 is 10. 10 is the Wheel of Fortune. This is a very important card. Before I begin with this specific card, it's important to understand one thing about the major arcana. we have to know what they are and what they're doing. Over the past 400 years, there's been a lot of esoteric accelerating moments with the tarot. A lot of esoteric excitants that have been added to this alchemical process of the tarot. And so what the majors have developed into over the past 400 years, they've become different angles to look at truth. So you can write this down. Major arcana, different angles to look at truth. You can also say different angles to look at God, different angles to look at reality. Every major arcana card, if you study it enough, will eventually become a symbolic illustration of the divine, which includes all matter and yourself. Okay? So every major arcana card, if you study it enough, becomes an illustration, a symbolic illustration of the divine, which includes all of matter and yourself. Different major arcana cards have different ways of exploring that divine or of looking at it, okay? So if you accept that the divine or truth or God is infinite, which if you're watching me, you may likely do. You don't have to. If you accept that the divine, the all, is infinite, then by virtue of its infinitude, there must be close to infinite ways to get there, okay? The major arcana cards give us 22 ways to get there. So they are like, let me talk about metaphors for a second. Metaphors are useful. Why are metaphors useful? Metaphors are useful because they take a lot of wisdom or knowledge or information and condense it into a very convenient, very small, very portable idea. Okay? So metaphors equal portable, convenient packets of larger pools of information. The major arcana cards do that. So if we were to take the universe and the divine and try to illustrate it in 22 ways, the major arcana cards are 22 ways that we can do that. Not the only 22 ways, obviously. There's so many systems. There's literally infinite, but 22 fun ways. Okay. Different major arcana cards have different levels of difficulty in how they create a perspective into the divine. Now, when I say the divine, what I'm talking about is your eternal nature, that which is hearing these words right now, consciousness, fullness, the present moment. Words can't even begin to describe that. So we use symbolism as a way to both explore it, but also celebrate it. So different major arcana cards are different viewpoints into the infinite, the eternal. The Wheel of Fortune is one of those cards that is actually easier than the others, because part of the Wheel of Fortune was literally based on somebody who did have a direct vision of God. Does anybody know who that is? So the Wheel of Fortune is partially based on somebody who had an actual direct experience of God. Does anyone know who that is? Put it in the chat if you know. Ezekiel, exactly. You said Jennifer said Pamela Coleman Smith, and I would say you are also right, probably. And that's a great answer. I think you're both right, but I was going for Ezekiel. Exactly. Okay. So, so because of that, it's a little bit easier to jump in, right? So when we look at the Wheel of Fortune, we're going to look at an aspect of the divine. And this specific aspect, the way that the divine, the all, is represented in the Wheel of Fortune is going to be very helpful for manifestation, because the Wheel of Fortune is a big manifestation card. Okay. But before that, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper, and then we're gonna get practical. Is that cool? So the Wheel of Fortune is not the only card we're going to be playing with today. We're also going to play with the Magician and our Fool. Okay. So when we break down the Wheel of Fortune, which is 10, and we break it down into 0 and 1, we get the Magician and the Fool and the Magician, which somebody already said in the chat that binary code, which is totally cool, 0 and 1. Now I'm gonna give I'm gonna give the biggest secret of tarot. Are you ready for this? This is the fun one. This is my favorite thing about the tarot. I will find any excuse to talk about this because it's the most important thing. And if you understand this, you understand the whole thing. Okay, you ready for this? If you understand the relationship between the Fool and the Magician, you will understand the entire tarot like this. If you understand the relationship between the Fool and the Magician, you'll understand the entire tarot like this. And not just the tarot, but you'll understand everything, all of reality. So in, which one was it? I'm a big fan of the Upanishads. In the Chandogya Upanishad, I forget the characters' names because I'm the worst with details, but the father asks, the son comes home and the son is like really feeling his oats. He's feeling really confident because he just went to school and learned a bunch of stuff. And so he's telling his dad all the stuff he learned. And so his dad is like, well, son, what is the one thing through which everything is known? And his son can't answer, to show that he learned information, but he didn't learn truth. He didn't get wisdom. So that's a very important question. What is the one thing through which everything is known? I forget who asked that. If you know it, put it in the chat. I'm pretty sure this is I think it's the Chandogya Upanishad. It might be another one. The joke, non-joke, the truth, the punchline, the non-punchline is that through which everything is known is his own self, is his true self. And that true self can be understood as the relationship between the Fool and the Magician. It's really the Fool, but if you stretch it, it becomes the Magician too. What do I mean? Okay, so we're working with 1 and 0 today because it's 2026. All mystical traditions lead into oneness and then noneness, okay? You get oneness, then you get noneness. What we're talking about is consciousness, exactly, consciousness. So what I told you, we're going to go deep and then we're going to bring it back and then we're going to go deep again. So we're going to go deep and then we're going to get practical with all this and we're going to go deep again. So in every spiritual tradition, every mystical tradition, there is a path from where you are now in a world of duality to an indescribable experience of oneness. Okay? Every tradition. And then noneness, 0. Oneness and noneness are actually the same thing, but for semantics, we're going to say they're different, right? Okay. So when we look at the major arcana cards as representations of spiritual phases, the Magician is that moment of oneness, and then the Fool is that moment of noneness, right? So for example, Magician might be some form of samadhi, whereas the Fool is like nirvikalpa samadhi. The Fool is 0. Fool is emptiness. So the Buddhist emptiness, the Shunyavada, the tradition of emptiness, realizing emptiness, whereas the Magician is realizing fullness. So as you go up the tree of life, or any kind of, or the Neoplatonic hypostases, or as you travel up the spheres or the planets, you get closer and closer to oneness. You expand out. If we're using a spatial metaphor, you expand out and you eventually realize that there's no difference between you and the universe. And then eventually there's not even anything. There's 0. But this is where it gets even more fun. Okay. So let's say you spend 40 years doing intense sadhana. You're doing intense yogic practices and you're doing all sorts of things with your body and breath and energy. And then 40 years from now, you hit this samadhi, this state, and you're completely blissed out. And then even beyond that, you hit this place of enlightenment where your ego is completely dissolved into everything. And there's no difference between everything and you. You're enlightened. What happens next? Well, the true answer is nothing happened next because nothing happened to begin with. Okay, whatever, that's great. But in the world continues. So you're sitting in your bedroom and you're sitting in posture and you're blissed out because you're totally enlightened. And then your spouse comes in and you're like, honey, you've been doing this for days. Can we do something? Can you help me with the dishes? The world continues. The world continues, even though you are completely enlightened. The relationship between the completely enlightened state and the world continuing is the relationship between the fool and the magician. And that relationship is the relationship between nothingness and everythingness. So, for example, how like an enlightened master can be completely still and can be completely absorbed into the universe where there's truly nothingness, and yet the world continues. This is the contradiction that is introduced by the binary of 0 and 1, the fool and the magician. And it is the secret of how something comes out of nothing. So the relationship between an enlightened master and the world continuing is the same thing that was, we might say, that was explored when God said, "Let there be light," when the word was with God. So it's the word, it's the oomph of the universe to happen. Because this is a really fine and really exciting, because I'm sure you guys have read different spiritual texts where it's like everything is one, everything is nothingness, but yet in the nothingness, there's all this. Aleister Crowley, for all my Crowley people out there, for my Thelemites, for my Thoth Tarot people, he at Lake, what was the lake? I forget what lake, but he wrote this poem where he was like, he says, nothingness that twinkles, nothingness that twinkles, but what twinkles? Look at the twinkles. He's talking about the stars, right? So reality becomes this shining, this twinkling, this manifestation. All manifestation becomes this shining of nothingness. Nothingness, the fool, which becomes everything. So everything coming out of nothing. That's the big idea. So if you understand the relationship between nothingness and everythingness, the entire tarot, it makes sense, and it all becomes the symbol of the same thing. Everything points to that. For convenience, and I don't really know why, but I call this the logos. That's what the word, which to me is the magician coming into the fool. The tarot is the way that I formulate my ideas. I'm in no way a biblical scholar, but that's the word. That's the logos. That same logos, that same word is what you use to create your reality, is what you use to manifest. Okay. Now we're bringing it a little bit more practical. I told you I would, right? for everyone that was patient. We're going to now bring it more practical, and then we're going to go back in the deep end. Okay. So the same relationship that an enlightened sage has with the illusion of the world that continues around him or her is the same relationship that you have when you manifest your reality, believe it or not. So when you manifest, now we're getting into manifestation. Exactly, the word becomes flesh. Now, when we're going to get into manifestation now. So before I ask if who this year wants to manifest something big, wants to change their circumstance, wants to achieve something, make changes, make waves, all the fun stuff. So manifestation, always, even when you don't think so, even unconsciously, manifestation always has the relationship of nothingness to everythingness. chaos to order, 0 to 1. It's the magician pulling a rabbit out of its hat, right? There was no rabbit. He pulls a rabbit out of his hat. Where did the rabbit come from? It just materialized, something out of nothing. Now, we can get into the weeds with this philosophically and realize that, something doesn't come out of nothing because it's blah, 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 blah. We're not going to do that because we're getting practical now. Okay. So 0 to 1, nothing to something. That is the engine of the Wheel of Fortune. Why? The Wheel of Fortune is number 10. 10 is 1. And we're going to throw that 0 in there because you can't have 1 without 0. 0 and 1, 10. The engine of the Wheel of Fortune is something coming out of nothing. So the Wheel of Fortune becomes a symbolic representation of the continuous change of the universe that results from something constantly coming out of nothing. Another way to look at this, if you want to be really pedantic about it, it's not so much that something magically comes out of nothing, but it's more like nothingness. Everything shapes itself in different ways. So a really fun Vedantic metaphor that I like is oceans and waves. We are like, water is the truth, God is the ocean, we are all waves. The wave comes up and then it recedes, right? And so nothing is ever given or taken or lost. We emerge and then we come back into the ocean. So the something is the waves and then the nothing is the ocean. Cool? Maybe that's an easier metaphor. The point is we need to get comfortable with nothingness if we want to manifest something. Now I'm going to change the language so it's a little bit more colloquial. When we manifest something, we only manifest from a lack of attachment. We only manifest from a lack of attachment. That's not we can manifest from attachment as well, but let me rephrase that. We manifest best from a lack of attachment. When we're not attached to our results, the manifestation is faster, easier, and better. So what I said before is when you manifest, your relationship with your manifestation is always, at least to some extent, the same relation as an enlightened sage to the world around the enlightened sage. Because the enlightened sage is not attached to anything. The enlightened sage is completely aware of the nothingness, of the emptiness of nature, and yet has abilities to manifest things. A lot of times for sages, it's just manifesting a lot of goodwill and a lot of positive things happening in the world and movements and other people growing spiritually, but they can manifest things. Magicians as well, right? People that use magic manifest things. But it all comes from this place of 0. And that place of 0 is a lack of attachment. Okay. So I'm now going to paint another picture for you about how this happens on the macrocosmic and then how it happens on the personal. So the key lesson here, which many of you probably already knew before we started today, was it's best to manifest when you're not attached to something. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, the way that I experience it, the way I feel it is, it's oftentimes I look at something and I say, it would be nice if this happened. But there's no attachment. It would just be like, yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. It's almost like it's almost like a creative passing little daydream, but not with desperation. Just, yeah, it would be nice. That's how I've manifested most of what I have. That doesn't mean you don't put hard work. That's a whole different thing. The work follows. But in the initial stages, there's this ease of, it's like this. It's like, I'll take that. Okay. Let's talk about the Wheel of Fortune again. We're going to go into the symbolism and then we're going to go back into practical manifestation, okay? And then if we have time, we'll do some readings. Actually, does anyone have any questions before we go into the deeper symbolism of the Wheel of Fortune? So I'm going to review. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. But a quick review is manifestation on the largest scale is the arising or emerging of form within the formless. You can write this down. Manifestation equals arising of form within formless. The formless is in tarot best represented by the Fool, which is card 0, nothingness. And the magician is the form that arises in the formless. The form is represented by the magician, which is 1, something coming out of nothing. Okay, that something coming out of nothing on the largest scale, on the most ontological scale, can be compared to the Logos or the Word of God. If you're into that, you could language it another way if you want to. In the Indian tradition, you might call it Maya. Okay. So that happening, whether you call it the Logos, the Word, manifestation, the will of the universe, whatever you want to call it, is the engine of the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is the machinery of the universe, including our world, but our world in the solar system, in a galaxy, in all of it. That's all the Wheel of Fortune. So everything we experience is a manifestation from something higher than us, and then also, or a manifestation from us. Okay, so we are manifesting as a reflection of the divine, but we are also manifestations of the divine. It's whirlpools within whirlpools within whirlpools, right? Does that make sense? Whirlpools within whirlpools. 2026 is our Wheel of Fortune card. Yeah, so Word of God meaning truth, ultimate truth, even that which you do not understand, whatever that means to you. So, truth is truth, however we interpret it. Truth is just truth. But by virtue of our experience arising in truth, because truth is infinite, it has no borders, it just is. By virtue of us as mind-body systems emerging, arising in truth, our experience is nothing but truth either. Everything becomes truth. So we are manifestations of truth, and as manifestations of truth, we echo that pattern by also manifesting for ourselves. So there's a personal relative world that we create, which reflects the collective creation. This is big in Hermeticism and as above, so below. Okay, let's continue. I'm going to give you the macrocosmic image now. So, and then we'll talk about how to actually apply this for manifestation that works. And then if there's time, I'll do a few more readings at the end. Okay, so Wheel of Fortune. It all starts with YHVH, Yod He Vav He, the Holy Tetragrammaton, which if you don't know, if you're my student, you definitely know this. But if you're not my student or you've seen my stuff, Yod He Vav He is the sacred name of God. And we see that right here, Yod He Vav He, right here in the Wheel of Fortune. 1, 2, 3, 4. That name is the source code of the universe. And there's so many things that name can do. But those 4 letters give us a pattern of creation through polarity, through masculine and feminine. Yod and Vav are masculine, and then the 2 He's are feminine. So this creation through division and polarity is how it all manifests. That's the source code. That's the very center of this whole engine. The manifestation of that is our 4 cherubic beasts, our 4 fixed signs of the zodiac, the 4 beasts that Ezekiel saw in his vision of God, in the cherubim. So those 4 angels are a lion, a bull, an eagle, and a human, representing the 4 6 signs. Lion represents Leo, bull represents Taurus, the eagle represents Scorpio, and the human or the angel up here represents Aquarius. These 4 fixed signs and 4 cherubic beasts represent the 4 quote-unquote corners of the universe. We know there's probably not corners of the universe, but it's a metaphor, okay? Meaning they are like the edges, so to speak, the very corners, the very limits of the manifest universe. However, that the corners of the universe, literally the corners of the cards, it it assumes a limitation in reality, in manifest reality. But Yod He Vav He, God, truth, there is no limitation. There's limitlessness. But as we said before, one coming out of zero is form coming out of formlessness. So the fool is zero, which is infinite. The magician is one, which is form, which is the entrance of limitation. When you put 1 and 0 together, you get 10, which is the wheel of fortune, which is the whole machinery of the universe operating from that binary of formlessness coming into form through imposing its own limitations on itself. So when people say, well, I mean, what, that kind of deals partially with the problem of evil. Like, oh, well, why is there suffering in the world? Why does life suck sometimes? Because limitation is imposed on the limitless for experience. That's the engine. That is the wheel of fortune, which brings us to the essence of the wheel of fortune, which is we go up the wheel of fortune, life's great. We go down the wheel of fortune, life sucks. We go up the wheel of fortune, life's great. We go down the wheel of fortune, life sucks. So when the divine imposes limitation for the purpose of experience, we have experience. And if experience is limited, if it has beginnings and endings, then it has duality. And if it has duality, it has good and bad. All of this stuff, now I'm going to get a little more practical, a little bit more reductionist here. All of this stuff happens in that place between your ears. That's the engine, by the way, that this whole thing operates from. This couple pounds of lots of data, up to 70, 80,000 thoughts per day is where this all happens. Samsara, suffering, Maya, the illusion of right, wrong, good and bad. That's the wheel of fortune. The magic of the magician, what does the magician ultimately manifest? Well, numerologically, we can say that the magician brings us to 10, right? Number 10 reduces to 1. So 10 is his ultimate project, is the rabbit that he pulls out of the hat is the wheel of fortune. In the same way that the word of God creates the entire world. Yeah? Okay. In the same way that, to bring in the Indian tradition, in the same way that Atman is Brahman. In the same way as the microcosm is the macrocosm. In the same way as above, so below. Yes? So the wheel of fortune is a representation of the machinery of the universe, which is all the change resulting from forms arising in formlessness. The biggest of which is represented by the material universe, represented by the four corners, the four beasts, the cherubic beasts, which are manifestations of Yod He Vav He, of God itself. Cool. So now the manifestation continues to our world. Now we're going to get into the four elements, okay? So imagine it. Here's the model. If you want to draw this out, this might help. You have, let's say, the ultimate, which is everywhere and infinite, the divine. Then you have your four cherubic beasts, your four fixed signs of the zodiac, which is the stars, your fixed signs of the zodiac. And then you have planets, and then you have Earth. What I'm teaching now is the Ptolemaic model of the universe. Or I can't pronounce things because I read a lot. The Ptolemaic model of the universe. Ptolemaic model is the model of the universe that was used in a lot of, how long ago was that? Oh my God. The first few centuries CE, which developed into different forms of magic and alchemy and definitely Hermeticism at that time. But the way people viewed the world then was the Earth is at the center. Above the Earth, there is the seven spheres, the seven classical planets, which revolve around the Earth, including the sun and the moon, the luminaries. And then beyond that, there's the stars, which is the zodiac and the firmament. And beyond that, it's just the divine, God, truth. So the Hermeticism and different traditions will play with this in different ways. The reason why I bring that up is because that image shows the same idea of the infinite God truth manifesting into what we experience below. So as above is out here, So below is down here. Now, the 4 cherubic beasts that show up on the Wheel of Fortune on the card we're studying for our year 2026, number 10, we have our bull, our lion, our eagle, and our human. The manifestation of those 4 energies on Earth are, can you guess it? Pop quiz. What is the manifestation of the 4 fixed signs on Earth? It's a fun one, and I'll give you a hint if you need one. Pop quiz. What is the manifestation of the 4? Yes, thank you, Moon Mama. Yes, air, water, fire, earth. Exactly. The elements. Very good. Okay. So, in ceremonial magic, which is not something I myself am an expert in, but in ceremonial magic, most of the time when you start ceremonial magic, the first thing that you do, I mean, you might do some like grounding and energy techniques or breathing techniques, but the first real magic you start to do is elemental magic. You start working with the 4 elements because you got to get your shit together on Earth before you start working with the planets or the signs. Okay. The elements loosely represent, like in the tarot, they represent the day-to-day. They represent our circumstances. They represent our love and relationships, our finances, our health, our mind, our will, and our creativity, and the actions we take. That's our 4 elements. So the 4 elements themselves are a lower manifestation of the 4 cherubic beasts, which themselves are a manifestation of the tetragrammaton, which is God, truth, all of that. Okay, cool. All right. So when we work with the 4 elements, so that brings it back to the magician, right? So the magician right here, as you probably know already, the magician has on his table 4 ceremonial tools. And those 4 ceremonial tools represent the 4 elements, right? Wands for fire, swords for air, cups for water, pentacles for earth. And those 4 elements are attributed also to the 4 fixed signs and the tetragrammaton. Cool. See how it's all connected. So what we're doing here when we're looking at the symbolism is we're seeing how, I mean, YHVH, he's like the big guy or the big girl or the big everything, right? The beauty of this is seeing how YHVH comes all the way down to our daily experience of our 4 elements of how we get paid, how we get laid, how we stay unafraid, and how we enjoy life's parade. The gag at the end of the thing is that how we get paid, how we get laid, how we stay unafraid, and how we enjoy life's parade, the 4 elements, the 4 suits of the tarot, are none other than Yahweh. Which way? This way, that way? Yahweh. YHVH. It's all there. Remember before I started this whole lecture by saying that whenever we manifest, by virtue of manifestation, our manifestation has the same relationship as that of a sage to the world that goes on around him or her. Our manifestation illustrates the same relationship as an enlightened sage, a silent, completely enlightened sage that is completely still amidst the world that is moving around them. Literally, that is what's happening on the microcosmic level that the tarot illustrates. On the macrocosmic level, God or the divine or the all is that silent sage, which is completely absorbed in its own infinite nothingness. And amidst that nothingness, the world revolves and manifestation happens. Literally, the planets, the stars, everything we see. The important contradiction here, the very important contradiction here, and if you can meditate on this, and if you can sit with this, and if you can get this, you'll become a Buddha, is that within all the movement, there's eternal stillness. And within eternal stillness, there's all the movement, including all of our experience. Fun, right? So, somebody asked earlier, how can I slow down? How can I slow down? My intention for this year is to slow down and relax. To slow down, recognize that through all your experiences, your thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, and actions and everything, through all that movement, the truth is nothing but stillness. There's a stillness that remains throughout all of it. It's what you are. It's that which is hearing these words right now. It's the observer. That's it. That's the stillness. If you can be with that and reconcile that which what appears to be moving all around and all the time, then you're a Buddha. Okay. Any questions? And then we'll get into practical application of this. Okay. I'm going to talk about how we can. So manifestation on the Wheel of Fortune happens from the center out. On the wheel, it depends on how you look at it. I would say yes. On the Wheel of Fortune, symbolically, it kind of happens from the center out, but it's not like a graph where it's like it's this, then this, then this. Because of the symbolism, it's not so. I think this image comes from Eliphas Levi, who was kind of. It's not strictly coming from inner out or outer in. It's just showing the different ingredients. We have our cherubic beast, we have tetragrammaton, we have Torah or Rota, we have some secrets there. We have the three gunas, the three alchemical properties. It's showing all the like symbolic ingredients of the universe all together. But the way that I like to look at it, if we're using space as a metaphor, we have to eventually let this go. But if we're using space as a metaphor, I look at it like infinite space is truth, is the divine, the supreme. And then the stars are the zodiac and the fixed signs, which manifest from that. And then the 7 planets, classically so, manifest from that. And then the earth at the center is where we are, which manifests from that. So it comes from out to in. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is in to out, which is usually how we think of it when we're manifesting in our lives. But I almost would want to suggest turning that inside out, because when you manifest from here to here, you take the world a little bit less seriously, which allows you to play a little bit more. When you manifest from here to here, you kind of put the world on a pedestal, and it can be not as empowering. Because ultimately the world is showing up in you, and there's no borders to your nature. If you're looking at consciousness, if you look at your own consciousness, you're not going to find a beginning and an end to it. So all the manifestations you've ever done have arose in your consciousness and have receded in your consciousness. Oh, right. We think of manifestation as I'm here and I want the thing over there. So some people, they think they're going to send an energy out or vibrate at a certain frequency and it'll arrive. And that's one that can work. But I think it's better to recognize you're infinite and then lightly choose what you want to show up. I find that to be more effective if you can. All right. So let's talk about ways that we can. Oh, we didn't even go to the associations. The attribution of Wheel of Fortune is Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus. Zeus is compared sometimes to the demiurge. So Zeus is like the god who's not the ultimate of everything, but is the ruling god, which people have connected to Yahweh of the Old Testament as well. But again, people will argue over that. So we'll do a little bit of now how we can actually apply this. So, quick review. The Wheel of Fortune, it's year 2026, which is a year of 10 and 1. The 10th card is the Wheel of Fortune, which represents the machinery of the universe as a manifestation of truth, God, the infinite. And that machinery of the universe, the source code of that manifestation of truth, is the relationship between nothing, which is the fool, and everything, which is the magician. I love talking about this because really, if you get these two, you're done. It's all there. Okay. Are there more than one planet represented by the card? It depends on what tradition you follow. In the Golden Dawn tradition, the Wheel of Fortune is Jupiter, which is what I think most people subscribe to these days. I find it to be the But there's other sets of attributions, definitely. Yes, recognizing that you're infinite and choosing how you want to show up, exactly. But recognizing that you, as in your mind and body and all the things that you experience, you show up in what you really are. What you really are is awareness. And so as awareness, the freedom is coming down into the subtle plane, which is where we have our hopes and dreams and feelings and energies, and choosing what would be the most fun. Knowing that whatever we choose and manifest isn't ultimately real, but is an experience that we can enjoy. Okay, let's get into it. Practical manifestation. We'll do some practical manifestation. And then if there's time, I'll do some readings at the end. Okay, so now's going to be the time to take out the notebook. So I'm going to teach you guys the most important steps to get started with practical manifestation, at least in the way that I've done it for myself. And over the past 5 years, I've achieved quite a lot of stuff. I've pretty much achieved everything I've always wanted. I know that sounds so corny and dramatic, but I really did. And I didn't even know I did until a certain point. And so I want to share with you what it felt like for me. Because if you know my story, you know, when I was younger, I was depressed, I was anxious, I was doing drugs, had one bad relationship after another. I was a mess. I was living with my parents. I was just like, I was a hot mess. At least I was a hot mess. And then I just got my life together and I started to manifest. I met my mentor and started to really get my shit together and created the life I wanted. And it's amazing. Sometimes I look around and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is where I am. From like 5 or 6 years ago. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. And so I'm going to share the most important things. There's many important things with manifestation because when you're manifesting, there's so much involved. There's your physical body, there's your brain, there's your mindset, there's whatever spirituality or sadhana you're doing, there's your community, there's your environment, and then there's a bunch of practices you can do. So in January 24th and 25th, Tarot Mysticism Academy, the school that I run, we're having a 2-day intensive on energy healing. And in that 2-day intensive, we're going to go deep into what I have found to be the most effective energetic healing practices ever. And I've studied a lot of energy healing and they're all great. And I say, go study as much as you can. But what I teach in these 2 days for me and for a lot of my students, it's the most effective, the fastest, and I can tell you all sorts of experiences of what people have done for their health, for their mindset, for their businesses, for their life in general. Like for people that want to turn things around in their life, these are the techniques. I can't teach them all in this. I'm not going to teach the techniques in this session. I have to like really sit with you for a while to teach them all. But I'm going to teach you some of the kind of introductory, like must-haves checklists for these techniques. And then I'm also going to teach you the ultimate goal of these techniques. So even if you don't like end up, if you don't have some sort of practice to really change the energy around your life, you'll at least know what needs to be done in order to find them. Okay. So shameless plug. I know I do a lot of email marketing, but I feel like I have not really marketed the energy healing as much. And I really need to, because I think this 2-day program we're doing in January is going to be, this is the thing that has brought people the most change. I teach a lot of stuff about tarot. I teach a lot of esoteric traditions. I teach Kabbalah. I teach manifestation, but these energy techniques are the thing that brings the most change, the fastest. And you don't have to believe me. Go to, you can look at the testimonials about that if you're interested in doing that. Today, I'm going to teach kind of like the most essential principles that you have to get down in the essence of manifestation. So real quick, I'm going to put a link in the chat for the energy healing 2-day intensive we're having January 24th and 25th, because I want you guys to see what these energy techniques can do, because there's a video there with testimonials of my students talking about the amazing things that they've done. And I want people to know how powerful this stuff is. Again, when I learned this from my mentor, it completely changed the game. So I'm going to introduce some of these ideas now so that'll get you started. But I strongly recommend, if you can, if 2026 is a year where you really want to manifest something, where you really want to heal something, where you really want to make some change happen, this energy healing for tarot readers that we're doing in January, that's the program. It's I would say, looking at all the things I've done, it's the biggest change I have helped people accomplish. It's probably the biggest contribution I've given to the world is spreading these techniques and having people really take these techniques, make them theirs, and apply them. Can you be my mentor and teacher guide? Yes, totally. I just put the link in the chat. That's the best place to start working with me in terms of energy and healing. Okay, one little thing. I'll tell you a quick. Did I want to go into that? Yeah. Anyway, here's another fun thing. If you look at my earlier YouTube videos, you'll see the differences. You'll see older Joe, like from 6-7 years ago. I'm still a little frenetic. He's much more frenetic. He's much more kind of all over the place. He's much more insecure. He's much more like, he had a lot going on. And so if you look at my older videos and look at me now, that's the result of the techniques that I teach. It's quite a before and after. But if if you go to the link that I put in the chat, you'll see my amazing students talking about all the amazing stuff that they've accomplished with these techniques. It's really amazing. So that's going to be 24th and 25th of January. And if you're a student of mine and you're enrolled in that, I'm so excited to be working with you on that. Again, it's some of the most powerful stuff. Even my team tells me like that this event we do a lot of awesome stuff. We go into a lot of material with the esoteric tarot and Western and Eastern mysticism, but I think this is one of their favorites too. It's amazing. So so I definitely recommend that. And if you're interested in that, you can go to the link. It'll have more information, and I hope to see you there. Okay. So let's get into the stuff. So manifestation, and if you haven't yet, pull out your notebooks for this. Manifestation, ready? Manifestation is your subconscious view of yourself times the ease and purity of your desire. So manifestation equals, this is the formula. Manifestation equals your view of yourself multiplied by the ease and purity of the desire. Cool? I'll put that in the chat. Manifestation equals honest view of yourself times ease and purity of desire. Okay, cool. So now we have to talk about those two things. What is the honest view of yourself, and what is the ease and purity of desire? What does that mean? So these two things decide whether you can manifest something or not. And there's ways to change and clean up these two things. Okay. So let's start with honest view of yourself. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's how you view yourself, how you really view yourself, consciously and subconsciously. We have views of ourselves that can be very grandiose, and then we have views of ourselves where we minimize ourselves, right? We look at ourselves and we imagine that we're much bigger than we are, and we look at ourselves and we pretend that we're much smaller than we are. The sum total and average of all of that is how you really view yourself. And that changes, right? So you have an average view of yourself based on how you inflate or minimize who you are, based on how overconfident or how maybe insecure you are. You kind of create this average score for yourself, which a lot of the time is based on how honest you are to yourself, how many times you've completed goals you said you would versus how many times you set out to do something and didn't do it. That contributes to your score. So you have this true, honest view of yourself. There's many views of yourself, but there's an average that combines the many different views you have of yourself with how many promises you've kept to yourself. That is another word we can use for this, maybe, is self-esteem. So you have a level of self-esteem. That's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation, any questions on that? We got that? How you honestly view yourself? Cool. Very cool. The other part of the equation is how pure, the level of ease and purity of your desire. Okay? The level of ease and purity of your desire. What does that mean? Ease is how easy it is to say that you want something. How easy it is to say that you want something. I'm going to give you an example. For some people, it's very easy to say, I want to make $100,000 next year. For other people, it's very hard to say that because they have 3 things that hold them back, which we're going to get into in a little bit. For some people, it's really easy to say, I love you and I want you. For other people, it's very hard to say that, right? To their lover or their hope to be lover. See what I mean? Like when I say these things, notice how your body reacts. For some people, it's easy to say, I really want to travel the world. And others, it's very hard to say that. So ease of your desire is how easy you can say it. Let's move on to purity of the desire. And then we're going to get into what brings this side down. So purity of your desire is how much your desire is unmixed with 3 things. You're going to want to write these three things down. Ready? Most people's, not everybody's, most people's desires are mixed with 3 pollutants. Are you ready to learn the pollutants? These are important. Ready? They are shame, guilt, and doubt. Shame, guilt, and doubt. So the purity of your desire is how pure that desire is from shame, guilt, and doubt. Fear as well. Fear as well. There's many. I'm talking about these 3 specifically, but yeah, there's fear as well. Fear. I think, yeah, I kind of put fear and doubt for this, but yeah, fear is a big one. So when a desire is fully pure, what you might think I'm talking about is like an ethical desire, like a noble desire, a politically correct desire. That's not what I'm talking about. If your desire happens to be noble and virtuous and politically correct, more power to you. That's great. But that desire needs to be clear of shame, guilt, and doubt, and also judgment and fear and all these detractors. And to be honest, a lot of times for a lot of people, desires that are fully noble and virtuous and not self-centered are never free of guilt, shame, desire, doubt, fear, and a bunch of other stuff and a bunch of judgment. It's just the truth. So, okay, now Ann Noble says, for example, if you want $100,000 because you're embarrassed about being poor, then it's not pure. Then I would say there is a shame around, the pollutant is shame, because the shame is, I don't want to be poor, so I want $100,000, so I'm not poor. So there's a little shame in there. It's not shame in getting the money, but it's shame in not getting the money, right? So it's just the antithesis, or the opposite. Yeah, so there's still shame in there. Okay. So manifestation equals your view of yourself multiplied by the ease and purity of your desire. Meaning, it's how you honestly view yourself times how much your desire is free from shame, guilt, and doubt. And other things too, mixed in, fear, judgment, all of that. A pure desire is simply wanting something without all of those detractors. And you might say, Joe, that sounds dangerous, because then bad people can want things without guilt, and then the world goes crazy. Well, that's not true. What I have found for me, that when I want something that is not actually good for the world, there's always some shame, guilt, or doubt or fear in that desire. If the desire is pure, if there's no shame, guilt, or fear or anything around it, then the nature of the desire will be beneficial to me in the world. Okay. So now the work begins when we know this equation. When we know that our manifestation is equal to the way we view ourselves multiplied by the purity of our desire, then we realize we have work to do for a lot of reasons, for two main reasons. One, we might not view ourselves in the highest regard to get the thing we want. And two, we might have impurities in our desires. We might have guilt, shame, or doubt or fear about getting something. So a big example. I'll give you a big example, a personal example. This is a really big one for me. So years ago, I'm at the Renaissance Fair, New York State Renaissance Fair. I'm reading with my amazing mentor Purim, and it's the dream job I've always wanted. And I'm reading tarot there. It's such a beautiful place, such a magical place. I'm reading tarot, and I want to be a professional. I am a professional tarot reader. I'm making money, but I want it to be like my full-time thing. My desire is I want to be financially independent with tarot. That was my desire. I didn't get it at that time. Why did I not get it? Because my desire was impure. Why was my desire impure? Because I had guilt around the desire. Where was the guilt? The guilt was around money. I wanted to be financially independent as a tarot reader, but I had guilt around receiving money. I sat at that table. People would put $20 bill on the table, and my body would literally pull back because I felt guilty taking it, because at that time I thought money was evil. I thought money was the root of all evil, and it's a bad thing, and I just got to put it away really quickly so nobody sees me put it away, and then I had shame about taking money. I had all this stuff around money. And my mentor helped me heal a lot of that. And I went from not surviving, kind of surviving with tarot, but doing other work, to making tarot my full-time thing and thriving from it. And then going into other stuff too. And then getting the home of my dreams, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing I had to do was I had to heal the impurities around my desire. I had to take my limiting belief of money is bad and turn it into money is a tool in order to do that. And it's only when I did that things started to fall into place. So that's one half of the equation. Is your desire pure? Is it free of anything that detracts from it? Guilt, shame, fears, doubts. And a lot of times with desire, people will want something and they'll be afraid of getting it or afraid of not getting it. And if you're afraid of getting it, you're going to push it away. And if you're afraid of not getting it, you're also going to push it away. And that's very common. Oh my God, it's so common. It's probably, from what I've seen in a lot of my community, at least in the spiritual community, the biggest thing that stops people from making the change they want is they're either afraid of not getting it or afraid of getting it. Because if they try and they fail, then failing to them is worse than not trying at all. So people don't try. They'd never take the first step. Or if they get it, then they're like, well, I'll feel guilty about getting it, or I don't deserve it, or whatever. And then if they get it, getting it is even worse than getting it, I guess, So, and then sometimes people are afraid of the process of getting it, of what they have to do to get it. And they get into the hows and the whys and all that. So that's purity of desire. You want to allow yourself to want something and not have any stuff come up emotionally, energetically around getting it, including guilt, shame, whatever, all that stuff. Allow yourself to want it, because if you truly want it, it's you anyway. It's just you. It's just who you are. And a lot of times manifesting is actually just becoming who you really are. That's another piece of it. Okay, so the other side of the equation is how you view yourself. And this I learned from my mentor is really effective. A lot of times the way we view ourselves is a is a score of how many promises we've kept to ourselves. And that's our self-esteem, right? But self-love is a vast goal. It's a very vast goal, you know. You have to love yourself to a certain extent to function, I believe. And the more you love yourself up to a certain degree, the more you can function in a way that contributes to the world. But I will say that eventually what happens is you reach a level of self-love where there is no individual self to love anymore. And then that's the beginning of mysticism. That's the beginning of the quest for actual truth, because the very quest for self-love breaks eventually. It's a good thing that happens, but just so you know, that's the thing. So the road to self-love is very vast, but we have to go down that road functionally. We have to put in the work for self-love. Because, you know, like RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else? And that's very true. Up to a certain point, when you realize there's no self for other people to love, it's just, it all is love. Its nature is love, or rather, the experience of truth is love itself. But that's a different type of love. We have to direct our love at our individual self while the individual self ego persists. We have to. You have to take care of the ego. A lot of people are talking about like egolessness and all of that. You can't function in this world without an ego. So if you have one, you got to take care of it. Got it? So the view of yourself, you have to have a healthy ego. In astrology, the sun represents the ego. You can't get to the, you know, in the magical path, as you're going up the planes, you can't get to the stars and the Empyrean, right, without passing the sun. You have to pass the sun before you get there, in terms of the Ptolemaic model, which means you have to develop a healthy ego in order to eventually release your ego. So that's important. So in the view of yourself, you have to develop a healthy ego. How do you develop a healthy ego? You make choices that are in alignment with what you really want, and you're honest with yourself, and you're honest with other people as much as possible, right? Yeah, you create good boundaries, and you honor yourself, and you recognize your successes. Cool? Yes. Okay. Great tool. Learning to love myself and not seek outside, but inside. That is great. That is so important. And it's a journey. It is a journey. It's a journey, you know? And I'm so like still on this journey, right? Because there's things in life that make us feel good about ourselves that's not ourselves, but we want them to be. And it's so easy to enjoy that as a representation of ourselves. And we can enjoy that, right? We can enjoy our successes and our things and things outside, but it's like, eventually we have to face the music. So I'll say it one more time. So mysticism picks up when the quest for personal self-love leaves off. So you get to a point where you can love yourself in a healthy way, but eventually you realize that it was kind of a wild goose chase, because the self that you're trying to love doesn't exist. It keeps changing. Who you are tomorrow is not who you are today, and it's not who you were yesterday. So if you love yourself today, tomorrow you're different. Do you still love yourself? Like, you can love yourself because let's say you're a father of 3 and you raise these 3 beautiful kids, but then you go to war and you have to kill somebody. Do you still love yourself? You know, it's kind of a dramatic example, but that's what causes the frustration. How can we love ourselves when we are lovable here, but in this situation we're not lovable? It brings up the fragility of the ego, the fragility of the illusion of the separate self. And so eventually we have to kind of come to terms with the fact that the self we are loving never existed, but the self that is love is the background to everything that we experience as the individual self. The individual self emerges in this background, which by its nature, you might say is love. So there's kind of a little, it's a big change at that point. But on the way there, and even beyond that, even if you've gotten beyond that point, you still have to take care of the ego as as its own whirlpool in the ocean, right? You have to recognize the whirlpool in the ocean. You have to recognize your stuff. This stuff isn't really in the book. The book hints at this stuff. The book is mostly technical tarot. It's Thoth tarot and Kabbalistic tarot, and uses the tarot as a map of some of these ideas. I mean, it all goes to the same place eventually, but I'm teaching it in a little bit of a different way. We're going to be going deeper into this stuff in energy healing for tarot readers. We're doing January 24th and 25th. I'm going to shamelessly link this again because I am so excited. This is, I think, and I think a lot of my students would agree, one of our most transformative programs. Because it's the stuff that I started learning from my mentor. And I'll say this to the cows come home. Again, I've been studying Western and Eastern mysticism for a long time, and I've learned a lot of stuff. But my life was pretty shitty until like 6, 7. Well, no, it wasn't shitty, but it was not all together until like 6, 7 years ago when I met my mentor, and she's the one that helped me apply this wisdom and actually create a life that I want and create a whole lot of amazing stuff for me in terms of mental health and stuff. So the practical application of this knowledge is really what I teach in energy healing for tarot readers. That's where we take this knowledge and really apply it and change things in ourselves and our bodies and our minds for real results. And that's my favorite thing about it. That's weird that it's all that the delivery is not until June. I wonder why that is. Yeah, my book is more on the technical tarot. So it's more of like a poetic, and well, I guess it's poetic, but it's also it's a breakdown of the Kabbalistic tarot of the Thoth deck. So it's really good for studying tarot and learning tarot in this deeper way. But the practical application of that knowledge is a very different thing. This is something I kind of want to do more of with my school and just with the general public, is like, how do we take this knowledge and actually use it to feel better about ourselves? Because one thing I consistently see in a lot of alternative spirituality and new age stuff is people like this stuff, but 5 years later, they're in the exact same space. That's not what happens at Tarot Mysticism Academy. When people come and take energy healing for tarot readers and apply that stuff, things change really fast. And it's exactly what happened to me with my mentor years ago. And I want people to start using what actually works, what actually creates more fun for them, more freedom, whatever it is, more financial freedom, more health, better relationships. Yeah, that's my favorite part about this, is actually seeing the positive change. Okay. What else? So just to review, and then we're going to do some readings and then we're going to wrap things up. Manifestation is your subconscious view of yourself multiplied by the ease and purity of your desire. The ease and purity of your desire is how much your desire is pure from fear, shame, guilt, doubt, judgment, all those things. And yeah. So how do you actually purify your desires, and how do you actually have a better view of yourself? The honest truth is healing. And there are long ways and there are short ways to do healing. And I've done both. I've done certain types of healing that take a very long time. I've done all different therapies and lots of personal growth stuff and coaching and magic. And I've tried a lot of stuff. And there are ways that happen really fast. And I will say, from my experience, the thing that I have found to be the most effective, the fastest way to heal, especially inner stuff, are the energy healing techniques we teach in Tarot Mysticism Academy, which we will be teaching in January. I'm going to shamelessly put the link in the chat again because I'm so excited for this. This is one of our most transformative programs. Okay, so enough self-promotion. Let's get back into practical application and then do some readings. So manifestation is about being, so what happens when you've healed all of this stuff? When you've done the healing around all the stuff around your desires, all the guilt, the shame, the the judgment, the fear of getting what you want, the fear of not getting what you want, all the things that stop you from doing the damn thing that you knew you should have done already 5 years ago, right? This is big. Like, I can't say this enough. Like, it would have been so easy for me to stay where I was 5 years ago had I not met my mentor and started doing this work. So easy. And for so many people, it is just that easy. Most people stay exactly where they are for a very long time. I myself am a personal growth junkie. So I'm always like, let's grow, let's push things, let's do that, especially since I started 5 years ago. But yeah, don't fall into the temptation of staying where you are if you're not happy with where you are. If you're happy with where you are, that's great. Change is not needed. It's choice, right? The problem is so many people are unhappy with where they are and have a lot of, problems and difficulties, but they don't choose something different. They wish for something different, but they don't take the action. That's the difference between the mechanical plane and the subtle plane. In the mechanical plane, you are a result of the wheel of fortune and you can't control anything. And that's how some people view the world. In the subtle causal plane, you realize that your circumstances and your inner energy body and your nervous system are mirrored to a degree. And so you can change things in your nervous body and your energy system and your subconscious mind, which changes the way you hold yourself and changes your circumstances. I've done this multiple times. That's how I've manifested my dream partner, my dream home, and many other things that I'm really, really proud of. Yeah. And then you don't stay the same. And then you surprise yourself with who you become, which is, I can honestly say I've done for myself and I've seen my students do for themselves, and it's amazing to see. So yeah. So when you've done this healing work and you've gone into the body and done this energy healing, what happens is when you start to manifest something, instead of being like 50% for it and 50% against it, you become closer to 100% towards it. You only need to be 51% towards something to eventually manifest it. But if 51% of your energy is going towards something and 49% of your energy is going away from it because you're scared of achieving it or scared of not achieving it or scared of what's going to happen or scared of whatever the hell, then it's going to take you a long time because that's only 1% of your energy that is pro getting the thing. So it may take you many, many years. If you have 90% of yourself going towards something and 10% of yourself going away from that thing, then you're going to get it much faster. So, and another thing in energy healing for tarot readers, when we do this healing work, we start to reduce the percentage of what the part of you that's running from what you really want, and increase the percentage of the part of you that trusts yourself and trusts the process and is more energetically aligned with what you want. And it's amazing. It's resulted in all different things. Okay, cool. So the result is getting closer to 100% of true involvement in going towards what you want. Now, this is where I'm going to tie it all together. Are you ready for this? We're going to tie it all together. So, what happens when you get to 100%, where your body, your mind, and everything you have is 100% towards what you want to happen? I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time since that's what we're talking about. When you are 100% truly 100% invested in what you want to occur in your manifestation, what happens? The answer is, you ready for it? It's God mode. It's God mode. No, it's literally the supreme, literally the divine. Exactly. Hallelujah. True. And here's how you know. Here's how you know. Because the word did not stutter. The word did not stutter. When God said, "Let there be light," God did not stutter. Okay? There was 100%. When you, and I'm not saying I've achieved that. This is where I think all of us mystical misfits, or I think everyone on the planet, is looking to achieve that state where they're 100% fully immersed in what they want to create. But truly, it's got, and literally what that is comparable to what the yogi might call samadhi, or one might call moksha, or one might call maybe a satori, though a satori is more of an event. It's an enlightened state. or at least one of the enlightened say. Having 100% investment into something is, now you might say investment, that doesn't sound right, because enlightened say is detachment. Well, yeah, but when you're completely absorbed into something, you're not attached to it because you are it. So if you go into the Yoga Sutras, a lot of the practices or similar practices, it's about fusing with what you're focused on, like meditating with a candle and looking at the candle and fusing with the candle, so only the candle exists. I think that's called dharana. Only the candle exists, nothing else. That is the level of manifestation you want, where you're completely immersed in what you're focused on, and that's close to God. That's close to truth. Cool. On the way there, we have our turbulence, It's a work in progress. Okay, cool. Any questions? And then we'll do some readings and then we'll wrap up. Why isn't the sun considered in 2016 as a major arcana influence, since its numerology equals 10? No, it is. We can definitely go to the sun. I just started with 10 and reduced to 1, but you can go to the sun as well. So the sun would be, well, that would be a whole nother lecture. I didn't even, it's been almost 2 hours. I haven't even really completed the Wheel of Fortune. That would be a whole nother lecture. Yeah. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Next time there's a 10-year or a 19-year. Okay, I'm going to answer this one because this is a really fun question. How much of life is deterministic? How much of life is free will? Do you want to know the real answer, or do you want to know the slightly less real answer that's a little more comfortable? The truth is, it's already determined what I'm going to say, so I can't really be honest with you. Okay, so I'll talk about it from... Here's what I've seen in whether it's Eastern mystical traditions or more introspective traditions, or even in more magical external ceremonial traditions. I need a thing to talk about this from. Okay. Here's the first big side quest of the lecture. This is what I always do. It gets to be the 2-hour mark, and I'm like, oh, let's go into that thing. So, are things predetermined, or is there free will? I love this question. It's actually a really important question because it deals with tarot and it deals with a lot of stuff, and it's something I'm particularly interested in. So there's a few different answers. I'm gonna share the Perennial Philosophy ebook. I have this, you can download for free at tarotmysticismacademy.com/e-books. I think we still have this one. Let me just make sure we do. Tarot mysticismacademy.com/ oh no, tarotmysticismacademy.com/ and then we're going to get into this question because it's a good one. So I'm going to put the link in the chat if you want to download this guide, because this one actually echoes a lot of what I taught today. Okay. So the Perennial Philosophy, here it is, and you'll see it echoed in all these different traditions. So free will, is there free will? There's 3 ways to look at this. So on the mechanical plane, there's no free will, but that is freely chosen by somebody. Okay, so mechanical plane, the 4 elements, it's not so much that there's no free will, but there's not an interest in taking advantage of one's free will. So this is the place where we don't believe we can change, or we believe that if we change, it's at the mercy of the universe. This is the place where we get very superstitious and we hope other things will come in on our behalf to get us what we want. Okay? So that's mechanical plane. Subtle plane. Subtle plane is where and you're going to notice the sun is in the subtle plane. Speaking of the sun, speaking of, it's the year 2026, which reduces to 10, which 19 also reduces to 10. So the sun card is here. In the subtle plane, we do have free will. And that is where, like, when I work with people, so in January, we're going to do energy healing for tarot readers, and I'm going to be teaching a bunch of energy healing techniques. The basis for that is accepting the apparent free will that we have today to create and change the energy body, to change the nervous system, to change the arising experiences that we have as a microcosm of this macrocosm. So there is a relative free will there. And it is so important to maximize that. So important, because that is where you develop your ego. That is where and you have to develop your ego. Like, well, you don't have to, you can do whatever the hell you want, but in the personal development to spiritual development, you have to develop your ego to a certain extent before you eject it, right? It's very rare, maybe impossible, to go right from mechanical to mystical and like experience like an enlightened stage. You have to develop, for most paths, you have to have some level of groundedness in your ego, or very dangerous things can happen. So in that area, the paradigm is, yes, there's free will. And it's the free will that we experience every day from our choices, because we do choose things. Now, there is a stage beyond that. And it's symbolized in the tarot in certain places, and if you achieve certain states of consciousness, it's kind of realized there where free will doesn't exist. Womp womp. Free will, at least, doesn't exist from the perspective of a separate individual entity. The mind itself doesn't have free will, ultimately, because the mind is eventually, when you cross the abyss, the mind is shutting off. Yeah, and that's it. That's not to say we don't have relative free will still here in our everyday life. We do, and we need to honor that. But beyond the waking world and the dream world, is there free will? It's not so much that there's not free will, but the nature of freedom is completely unintelligible to the mind. To the mind that we're using right now, it's completely foreign. The freedom, like the mind can't handle that freedom. What the mind does, actually, the mind projects death onto the freedom that lies beyond it, because it can't possibly understand it, because it transcends the mind. And it is death of the mind. So it's kind of ironic. A lot of people's fear of death is fear of freedom, but like ontological freedom that the mind can't understand. And that is quite a leap, quite a leap of faith indeed. So what happens is, when I'm teaching my students, like when we're going to do energy healing for tarot readers this January, I'll link that again. I'm really excited for that. We operate from the standpoint of free will, and free will is very apparent in the work that we do. There is a point, I've had students get to this point, where if you do enough healing, you eventually heal the illusion that you need to heal. And when you do that, there's this moment of free will becomes this like puppet that just kind of floats away, and there's just no words for it. One of the things I'm really interested in this year is the relationship between the energetic and personal development work that we do in the subtle causal plane here in level 2, and how that bridges into the blue mystical plane, which, if you're a Kabbalist or if you study the tree of life, it's the relationship between Hesed and Bina, or it's the abyss. It's how we cross the abyss. So in ceremonial magic, there's you cross the abyss in one way, but people have been crossing the abyss infinitely, I guess, for a long time, and it's in different ways. So after you do a certain level of healing on the personal level, then it's such a beautiful moment. I remember somebody on my team started to experience this. There's this like deep existential surrender of like, no matter what I do or don't do, it's existentially okay. Like at the deepest level of reality. And then when you get to that place, then that's mysticism. That's closer to the direct path, because that's just truth. But yes. So I'm really excited for that. And it's such a pleasure for me, because as somebody who's like very much actively on this journey, when I teach this and when I do this with my students, it's like we're all just like on the freaking Mario's Rainbow Road. Is that what it's called? I love Mario Kart. We're just like zooming together on this. It's so fun. Okay. I know we're 2 hours in. I'm going to do a couple minutes of quick readings, and then we'll wrap up. But yeah, this was so fun. So for our last couple minutes, if there's a burning question you have for the new year, put it in the chat, and we'll make some magic. So for anyone that's interested in the energy healing for tarot readers, by the way, we're doing that January 24th, 25th. If you're not a student of mine and you'd like to be, and you go to that link, there's an apply button. You can apply. We'll meet. We'll chat. And if it's a right fit, we'll make magic together. And if it's not, we'll make magic separately, and that's fine too. And for those of you that are already students of the Tarot Mysticism Academy, you might already be enrolled in that. If you're not enrolled in that, definitely email me, and we'll try to get you in that. Professor Tony 726. Can I retire this by the end of the year to do tarot full time? Oh, I love this question. Professor Tony 726. Five of Swords is saying not by the end of the year. Five of Swords is saying there's something you need the client acquisition to be high enough to retire and do tarot full time, and Five of Swords is saying it might not be there yet. Five of Swords can also talk about some doubts or fears around being a full-time tarot reader. Maybe there's not. I don't want to plant the seed. If there's not, that's more power to you. But Five of Swords can be difficulty in finding the type of client that you specifically want to work with, and creating a system where you have a lot of those clients. I can't help but plug, because we're talking business now. If you have, I don't know if this, I don't recognize your username, so you might already be in my mastermind, and if you are, that's awesome. But I do run a mastermind where I mentor people in building their professional tarot businesses and spiritual businesses. It's business was my hyperfixation for the past 5 years. So I've gotten really good at figuring out marketing and a bunch of things, especially in a way that supports spiritual work. The hardest thing to do in developing a full-time business is finding regular clients. Most tarot readers that do read professionally don't do it full-time. They just don't have the traffic for that. But there's ways that I teach where you can get the traffic for that, that are really fun. But it's the best thing. I recommend, whether you work with me in the mastermind or not. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Nicole says mastermind is the best. Nicole's amazing. Nicole Merges is a healer and minister and teacher, and does a lot of amazing work with women and coach, and she's fantastic. Yeah, mastermind's great. We get to come together, a bunch of spiritual business owners, and help each other, and I teach everything that I know about how I made spirituality my full-time gig. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done for myself too. But yeah, Five of Swords is saying you're going to really want to look at client acquisition. You're going to really want to get clear on your ideal client, your avatar, and create a way where you are pulling those people in. I get the sense that as things are now, Five of Swords is saying that might not happen for a year or two. So that's the only obstacle in turning that full time. Kelly's Tarot, 1980. Should I be a full-time healer in 2026? Ace of Pentacles, big yes, big yes. Of course, it's an ace call with all the aces as I teach. What are the aces? Aces are opportunities, not results. So there will be the opportunity to do so. It'll be about what you do with this opportunity and how you take it. Ace of Pentacles is a big card about action. It's a card about investment. It's a card about putting in the time, money, effort, whatever time, effort, all that stuff in the earth. Put in the quantity, put in the volume. Alex Hermosi always uses the word volume. Put in the volume and put in so much volume that you can't help but expect results. But Ace of Pentacles is an opportunity. It's the beginning. So this is a big yes card for you. Your outfits always slay. Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. I am not the outfit person. My partner is the stylist. He's not yet my stylist. I wish he was. But I'm learning a little bit from him. He's very fashionable. So I learn a little bit here and there. If it wasn't for him, I'd be wearing black and white all the time. Maria, will I be able to master tarot in the year 2026? That's a fun question. So I always think with tarot, I think I kind of say sometimes like we never master tarot because we always learn more stuff because tarot is a fluid system. But also like, why not? Priestess is kind of a big yes card for you, actually. Priestess is, the diviner archetype. She's the priestess. So she's kind of saying yes, but she's also saying be patient, focus on your intuition a lot. Priestess is also esoteric stuff. So studying the esoteric sides of tarot is big. But it's a yes. It's a yes from her right now. Will I find way to leave non-committal relationship 20 years around person, and I never was able to find a way to leave person? No marriage, no lovers, no children, no material, no attachment. That's just the choice at the end of the day. I'm assuming you've been with this person for 20 years, but not really been with them because they're non-committal. I think the best thing for that is to leave. Three of Pentacles is saying you're going to try to work things out. But you're already able to do that. J. Coco, will I win my freedom this year? I don't know if you're the J. Coco that I know, but if you are, it's so great that you're here. And if you're not, it's also great that you're here. But hello, J. Coco. Will I win my freedom this year? Ace of Pentacles, that's a big yes card, or at least an opportunity to do so. Will take some action, may take some work, but I see something good coming. So financially, time-wise, health-wise, definitely a time to start some new things. So I would say, yeah. Mr. F. Sela, why do I find it so hard to want anything? 2 reasons. One of 2 possibilities, not both. Either you're fully enlightened, or you may have guilt, doubt, shame, or confusion about allowing yourself to want what you want. It's not an easy thing to know what you want, but it's a necessary thing if you want to make life fun for yourself. It's very necessary. Honestly, I think the biggest thing, when I look at people, because I've been reading tarot for a long time, and then I was doing coaching for a while, and now I'm doing a lot of teaching. And so I'm always working with people, especially on their suffering. And the most common thing I see for people that are suffering is they're not clear on what they want. And even if they are, they don't believe it's possible. That's it. So you have to be clear about what you want. And if you truly don't want anything, then you have to ask the question, what do you enjoy? What do you like about life? And start there. And if you don't have an answer to that, go into your body. What does your body enjoy? What does it enjoy feeling, sensing? What does your mind enjoy? What does your mind enjoy thinking about? What type of people do you enjoy? Start with your experiences. Start with your thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations, and then what brings those positive thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations. Am I on the right relationship path? Little elf 7290. That looks familiar. Were you a student of mine? Or maybe there was another little elf. Okay, 7 of Wands is saying that you're putting in too much effort or you're feeling a little defensive. So 7 of Wands is saying the desire that you have, the fire that you have is great, but you're putting it in a direction that's maybe separating you from people or being defensive or somehow like you feel like you have to defend something about you in a relationship. You want to redirect that fire into the desire of the beloved. Care Bear says meditation into the void is helping me through trauma. So the thing with trauma and meditation with the void. What I recommend is, so in Tarot Mysticism Academy, usually before I teach meditations dealing with the void, I teach people meditations and energy work dealing with themselves. And the reason why is because you have to face some of the music before going into the void. If you haven't developed, and I speak from experience because like literally 6 years ago, I would not be able to do spiritually what I'm doing now 6 years ago. It would have it knocked me off my course. It was not good. I went too far and I kind of lost it. Literally lost my mind for a few days. The reason why I lost my mind for a few days is because I had not developed a coherent enough ego, a coherent enough sense of self. I hadn't dealt with my own traumas enough. I hadn't done the personal individual healing that was required. So lost my marbles, came back, and then did the work. And now I'm returning to the work that I tried however many years ago. I always forget how long time has been. But yeah, so that to say, you want to work on your individual self, which is your sense of self, your ego, and build that structure up until you get to the point where you are, for the most part, more happy with yourself than sad with yourself. Whatever that means, you have to have at least a little bit more positive view of yourself and feel a little bit more stable than unstable. And then you can start the deeper work. But even, if for the people here that are interested in like the ceremonial magic, Israel Regardie, right? Israel, he transcribed the big brick. Israel Regardie says like you have to do some mental therapeutic work before doing ceremonial magic. And I think everyone needs to do some mental, no matter who you are, you have to do, everyone needs something, a coach, a therapist, or something, because if you're alive, if you have a pulse, you have some karma running, there's some stuff to do. So yeah. And so you do the healing until you get to that point of like at least a little bit more positive than negative view of yourself. I had so much shadow work to do before I moved into my interests. Yeah, you do the shadow work soon. Like, and look, here's my opinion that might make people annoyed, but shadow work is not getting, I'm sorry, I gotta say it. I just gotta say it. Shadow work is, and I'm not, this is not a judgment. I say this with love. There's so many cool tarot decks out there and art out there and beautiful things out there. But shadow work is not getting a tarot deck that has scary images and reading for yourself with those scary images. That's beautiful. And it can have a relationship to shadow work, but that's not really shadow work. Like, shadow work is when you look at somebody and judge them and judge the shit out of them and then recognize that you were only judging yourself and then deal with those parts of yourself. That's shadow work. And like every little judgment you have of other people, just recognizing that that's you. You judge them because it's you. And that's hard. It's something it's hard. It's hard. That's one aspect of shadow work, at least. And then when you've recognized that the things you judge in others are yourself, then you do the healing. And there are long ways to do it, and there are short ways. This January, when we do energy healing for tarot readers, we're going to do the short way to do that healing, the very short way. I'm really excited for it. It's at least the way that I've healed a lot of my shit. I'm still a work in progress. We're still coming along, but hey, we've come a long freaking way, a very long way. And yeah. Do I recommend a type of diet? I'm the last person to ask about that, but I will tell you, I did have to do a semi-pranic diet recently for a spiritual teacher that I went to see. And it was so hard because I do not eat the healthiest. It was like literally just fruits and vegetables, maybe cook them a little bit, but that's it. Fruits and vegetables. And it was so hard. I couldn't eat any meat, couldn't eat any sugar. And for me, I did not notice a huge difference. So, and I was on that diet for a week, so maybe I didn't give it enough time. But for me, I have not noticed diet affects me a lot, but for other people, it affects them a lot. There's a lot of body things I don't know about, but I'm the last person to ask about that. Though a lot of spiritual traditions would veer towards a wholesome vegetarian diet. I know Pythagoras was very strict with his school's diet. Will I be able to get my relationship to where I want it to be just based on how bad I want it? Ooh, that's a great question. I don't think you'll be able to get it there just based on how bad you want it alone. There has to be something else because it's a relationship. You need the other partner there. But the Nine of Pentacles is saying you can get yourself to where you want to be. The partner. So here's the thing with relationship. If your relationship isn't where you want it to be, there's only one thing you can do, which is change yourself. When you change yourself and you're in alignment with what you want in your relationship, you become a natural invitation to what you want in that relationship. When that happens and you become the natural invitation for what you want in a relationship, the person will either answer the invitation and follow you there or not. If they follow you there, then boom, your relationship is where you want it to be, and end of story. If they don't follow you there, then if you honestly hold the energy of what you really want, the relationship won't last. And you'll actually find the person that can go to where you want to go. It's that simple. But we have to be willing to let go if they don't come to us. So that's a big thing with relationships, because I would always want to force a relationship into what I wanted it to be. If you ever start forcing a relationship, that's a good sign of maybe it's not the right one. Professor Tony 726. Yeah, I'm really excited. I didn't talk about that. So I totally forgot. Thank you for reminding me. So Mystics Business Mastermind. Now I'm going to do one more plug and then I'll do a couple of readings and then we're going to wrap up. So as you know, we're doing energy healing for tarot readers this month. I'm really excited about it. One of our most transformative programs, but we're also starting a Mystics Business Mastermind, which I'm going to try to find the link for, but I don't know if I can find it really quick. So Mystics Business Mastermind is something I started a few years ago. If you search it on my website, you'll find it. Where I am, let's see if I can find it actually. Maybe it's not here. If anyone can find the link for the Mystics Business Mastermind, that would be awesome. The Mystics Business Mastermind is where I take a group. It's a smaller group of people, and it's where I take a group of people and mentor them in building a professional practice, spiritual business. So tarot reader, coach, if you want to be a coach, if you want to be an energy healer, if you want to teach tarot like me, if you want to teach something else, if you want to do courses, if you want to do one-on-one, if you want to expand your practice. This is what I've seen time and time again. There are so many people out there in the world that are so good at tarot, with their intuition, at healing. They have so much to offer. They have so much to teach. They have so much amazing stuff in them. They've overcome a lot of stuff. They're natural healers. They're empaths. They're all these great things. And they have no idea what they're doing business-wise, like zero. It's so fun because I was the same way however many years ago. I like had a lot to offer. I had a lot of knowledge. I didn't know the first thing about business. The past 5 or 6 years, I've like fixated, well, maybe in the past 4 or 5 years, mostly, I've hyper fixated on business, and I learned how to like turn the awesome stuff that I had to offer and turn it into a business where I don't actually just sustain and survive, but I actually thrive, and that I can actually be a bigger contribution to the world. So that led to multiple 6-figure business, best-selling book, and then the rest is history. And here we are. So I'm really excited to help people do that. There's a lot of skills involved that you need to learn to take spiritual practice or tarot and turn it into a business. I will say, from what because I've pretty much read tarot at every possible environment that you could imagine, with every type of tarot reader in all different places and dynamics. And what I've seen pretty consistently is that most tarot readers and healers too are not full-time. They do it part-time with other things. And it's tough. It's tough because you have to market yourself. You have to, heal your shit to feel good getting yourself out there. You have to build community. There's a lot of things to it. But it's the best thing I've done for myself. And it's amazing. I get to hang out with people I genuinely like hanging out with, and hang out with mystical misfits and teach this stuff and help people. And it's amazing. And it's freedom. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sometimes I can't imagine working for somebody else. I would die. I don't know how people do it. Oh my God. So that's another thing. You get to work for yourself and literally like create your own schedule, and it's awesome. I get to like travel the world if I want, go wherever I want, and work when I want, and it's wonderful. So the Mystics Business Mastermind is where I teach people exactly how to do that. Every step that I've took, everything that's worked for me, everything that's not worked for me, and why. And I teach them all the skills on doing that, whether that's building a YouTube channel, editing videos, doing in-person work, building a local community. Yeah, all that stuff. Marketing, working with people, and all the inner work that comes with that. Because every time, like for a lot of people, it's the block. Like, I teach all these skills, but then for a lot of people, it's like there's these limiting beliefs of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good enough. I want to, but oh my God, but I can't charge because money is scary. And I'm not, all these things I've experienced, all these things. Oh my God, self-worth stuff. I'm not worth it. Who would pay me for this service? We go through all of that. So I'm really excited. We have amazing people. We always have amazing people, but the cohort this year, we have some really awesome people doing all different things: healing, tarot, coaching, different businesses. So I'm really excited. And it's fun because you know what? Like, I am not a business. I am a business person now, but like I wasn't this way like years ago. I didn't know the first thing about it. And one of the things I learned was how deeply creative and spiritual and healing business can be. If I heard myself say this years ago, I would like totally disagree. But it helped me completely change the way I just think about the world. And I will say this: building my business to where it is now has allowed me to be a much bigger contribution to people than not doing it. So, and it's also allowed me to live like a lifestyle much bigger than I ever thought was possible. So it's one of my team members always has this really amazing way of looking at business, which is just win-win for everybody. If it's win-win for everybody, it's good. And so that's kind of what I try to maintain all the time. And yeah, so it's great. I'm so excited for that. We're going to get into so much stuff. But yeah. All right. Let's wrap up with one last card for the collective, and enjoy the new year. 4 of Swords. All right, let's all go take a nap because maybe a lot of us are hungover. I don't know. All right, 4 of Swords. 4 of Swords is the Lord of Truths. It's surrender. It's letting things be. It's hanging up your weapons. So that's a big thing, actually, with business, with personal life. We talked a lot about manifestation today. We went really deep into the Wheel of Fortune and the mechanics of the logos and the word and all that fun stuff. I think practically one of the biggest things, especially in this time right now, is like we are so, a lot of us, and me included, I speak from experience, like we can be very quick to jump to get our weapons out or get our shield out or get our block up if we don't like what we're experiencing from somebody or whatever. The Four of Swords is saying, hang up your weapons, hang up your guard, let your guard down, be vulnerable, because in that vulnerability, you can actually be aware of what's going on around you. And you can't make an informed decision if you're not aware of what's really going on around you. And to be truly aware, you have to be willing to receive that energy, even if it's just a little bit, to know what's there. So this is a card of being disarmed and vulnerable. And in that peace, you're finding what's really going on, which is a beautiful thing. Cool. So, yep, I'm really excited. So one last promo. January 24th and 25th, we're doing energy healing for tarot readers. I just put the link in the chat if you're interested in that. If you're not a student of mine yet, you can become a student of mine by applying through that link. Also, if you're interested in the Mystics Business Mastermind, in getting mentorship from me in building your tarot business or spiritual business, you can also use that link. You can apply in the same way, and we can talk about the mastermind. Mastermind starting at the end of the month. And energy healing for tarot readers is January 24th, 25th. Mastermind is a big program. It's like a year-long mentorship. There's lots of stuff. But if you're ready to finally, if 2026 is the year where you're finally going to take your spiritual gifts and say, I'm going to make something with this on a professional scale, the mastermind is for you. We're going to go all the things, business, and it's going to be so fun. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming. It was great hanging out with you. Keep an eye out. I'll keep you updated on news, and much love. Enjoy your new year. I'll see you in the next wormhole.